Welcome to this week's Quantum Alignment Show. I'm trying to broadcast from the fireside. I'm like, was it Roosevelt? Like our fireside human design chats today. Our topic is, and I'm just going to give you this little asterisk mark. Write this down, self-love. And the reason why I'm having you draw little asterisks and write down self-love is that this is a conversation we're going to be having over many weeks. I want to use this as sort of the initial discussion we begin about self-love, because the truth is learning how to love yourself is actually the journey of a lifetime. I think that to a certain degree, it's part of our soul's journey in this lifetime to learn to really see who we are, know who we are, all aspects of ourselves, our human selves, our soul selves, and to really live from that place of love. That is, to me, the human challenge. And when you factor into that conversation that we are bringing into the arena of learning from our, the place where we live out our soul curriculum through the story of our life, that we're not only bringing our own experiences, our own stories, our own perceptions, the weirdly unfortunate truth that we start our life as children with, children's perspectives that sometimes makes things very interesting, and also makes us very vulnerable in the very beginning of our lives. We're bringing with us into this arena generations of memories that we hold on a cellular level, we know from science, and I believe beyond our scientific understanding, on an auric level, we carry our lineage with us into this arena where we live our soul's curriculum, where we learn about love, and most importantly, where we learn about love in this third dimensional form on the planet. So people often ask me, well, what do I need to do to learn to love myself? And, the answer is multifaceted. And I'm not going to say complex, because I think sometimes we equate complex with difficult. But I am going to say it has a lot of facets to it. And what I want to share with you today is an introduction. And I want you to know that, and I don't frequently do this, but I'm going to do this today, some of the places where I'm going to point you today in the context of resources are going to be resources that I've created over the last few years that are out there for you to at least begin to explore the possibility of learning to love yourself. It's not necessarily easy, but a lot of what I'm going to talk to you about is actually simple. And sometimes I think when we talk about simple, we discount it because we think, oh, if it's not complicated and hard, then it can't work. But some of the things we're going to talk about today are simple. And I'm going to give you just a little bit of sneak peek into some of the things that I share with my clients when they are actively pursuing the conversation and the question, how can I learn to love myself better? All right, Cindy, do I have the quantum alignment system eyeball up?
Yes, you do.
Awesome. And is the slide moving?
Yes, it is.
Okay, yay. Okay, we have a bonus here. All right, so let's start with this really important question. Why is self-love so important? Because sometimes we think we can bypass this step, and I want to show you why it's so important. If you've been hanging with me for the last few years, you've heard me talk about the 9 resiliency keys. The 9 resiliency keys are core archetypes or core elements that you need to have operating in the highest state possible, and nobody's going to be operating at all of these at 100% all of the time. We're all kind of playing gopher bop with these 9 resiliency keys in our lives, especially, because we're on a growth cycle. So every time we grow and expand, we have to deal with different facets of the resiliency keys. But if I lay them all out kind of as a pyramid, And I look, and it doesn't always work this way, so it's really hard to make human beings into formulas. So I'm really pushing the edge of the formula envelope here, but I want you to really contemplate this. If we look at vitality, which is in its low expression burnout, and last year, I talked a lot about burnout, because burnout is a side effect or a symptom of the other 8 resiliency keys not functioning at their highest level. If we look at the top of this pyramid as being burnout, we'd see that underneath are all the other 8 resiliency keys, and that at the foundation, at the base of this pyramid, are 2 of the most vital resiliency keys, and honestly, the 2 resiliency keys that I think most people struggle with: lovability and self-worth. Today, we're going to explore lovability. I will also explore self-worth at a different time, because I want you to understand both of those energies, because they're subtly different, although they're both really rooted in the heart chakra, or the 2 centers associated with the heart chakra, the G center and the will center. Today, we're going to explore the G center. The G center in the chart is the center for love and direction and identity. Your identity is based here, and to a certain degree, and I'll unpack that a little bit as I go on, you have the freedom in this lifetime to define your identity, or at least define the personal narrative, the story you tell about your identity, in the way that you want to. You do have control and power over that narrative, but you have to learn how to use that control and power over that narrative. And that narrative itself, the story you tell about who you are or who you think you are, plays a role in the direction that your life takes you. Love and direction play together very beautifully in the G center, because what we really see in the G center is the quality of love that you have for yourself influences the direction that you take your life in. You are only going to allow yourself to experience love to the degree to which you love yourself first. So love becomes an expansive or a limiting factor in the story you tell about who you are, and consequently in the direction that you take your life. And that's really the baseline information that I want you to get today, because as I go through the rest of the program today, I really want to unpack some core elements related to this concept. And I really want you to take this concept with you throughout the rest of the week. I really want you to look at where has perhaps the lower expression of your lack of self-love influenced or limited what you've been willing to allow yourself to receive in your life? And where has your expanded places of self-love and self-acceptance, because they're both important energies in the G center, where has your self-love and your self-acceptance increased what you're willing to allow yourself to receive in your life? When we look at the G center and we look at the open G center, so that's going to be half of you. Half of you are going to have the center open. The tendency when the center is open is for you to question your lovability. The open G center is here to be wise about love. Your journey in life is to become wise about all the different ways that love can be experienced and expressed. If you were here last week on the Quantum Alignment Show, when Kristen talked about the 5 languages of love, human design, and Gary Chapman's work, which if you didn't watch that show, go back and watch it. It was amazing, okay? When, she talked about the 5 languages of love. If you have an open G center, you're here to learn, like, what are all the different languages and how do you express and experience those the most? The open G center has a more fluid personal story. Certainly when your G center is open, it's a little bit easier for you to tell the story about who you are in a more fluid way. There's a little more changeability here around who you perceive yourself to be, and consequently the direction that your life can take you. The way I like to explain it is kind of like this. If you imagine that life is a restaurant, when you go to the restaurant of life, and we all eat there, Those of you who have an open G, you're going to, hopefully you know what I'm talking about. This is my mother's favorite restaurant, those super mega Chinese buffets, right? The ones that have the petit fours and the little tiny octopuses and all the other stuff in between, right? So when you have an open G center and you go to the restaurant of life, you're able to choose off of the buffet, the mega buffet. If you have a defined G center, that means that you are going to be ordering off the menu. It doesn't mean you don't have choice. You always have choice, all right? But it does mean that the place where you're going to choose from is going to be different. Some of you are choosing from the buffet. Some of you have got a little bit more of a limited selection, a more destined selection from the menu. When you have an open G center, because it's the identity center, you're experiencing so many different ways that the human story can get expressed. You have a lot more choice because you've experienced different identities because of the nature of your openness. The big piece that I really want you to get here is that the open G has a tendency in the low expression or in the shadow expression to question its lovability. That's natural and that's normal. So if you're a kid and you have an open G center, or if you have a kid with an open G center, and let's say they make a mistake and you talk about the consequences of their mistake, these are the kids that even if you're being completely calm and friendly and joyful and happy about helping them manage the consequences of their choices, if they feel punitive in any way, the kid's going to say to you, you don't love me, because that's kind of the nature of the open G. The defined G center has more of a fixed direction and a fixed story. Again, it doesn't mean you don't have choice. You always have choice about the narrative. And most importantly, you have choice about the quality, the frequency of the energy you hold around your personal story. So you can tell a story with a defined G, and you can choose to tell the highest expression or the lowest expression. It just means that you're going to have a little less choice or a more limited choice that you're going to select. And let me just say, that's not a bad thing. And I really want you to get that, because I think sometimes there's sort of this interesting dialogue that we have about, oh, you know, I've got this fate or this destiny and I have to do this thing that I'm called to do. And, you know, I don't know if somehow in the story of the Joan of Arc and following your destiny, we got confused and we equate following your destiny with you know, being hung or burned or whatever. If you are living true to your path, your defined G destiny, you're not going to feel awful. You're going to feel fabulous, because alignment feels wonderful. Alignment feels easy. Alignment feels good and right. So please don't be afraid to follow your path. It's not going to be awful. It's going to be wonderful. And it's not limiting. It's liberating. It's much more limiting when you're trying to be something you're not. Okay. So the defined G tends to struggle with lovability in this way. It's not so much, can you love me? Am I lovable? As much as, can I be loved and accepted for who I am? It's a subtle twist, but it's an important twist, because the challenge for the defined G is to fully express your authentic self. The challenge for the open G is to choose which elements of the self you want to express. And the question with the open G is, can you love me this way? And for the defined G is, can you accept me for who I am? Subtle differences, but important differences when we start to really look at recrafting the story that you tell about who you are. So the source of direction in your life is love. The G center is the center for love. So let's look at the different gates in the G center and the kinds of love that live there, because these kinds of loves and your experience of this love is going to influence it's going to influence the direction that you take your life, the direction that you lead yourself into, and it's going to influence ultimately what you attract and experience in your world. So of course, the very first one through the gate 10 is the gate of self-love. And the voice of this gate is, I love myself. The more you love yourself, the better boundaries you set, the better care you take of yourself, the better the more willing you are to allow yourself to pursue those things that you really want to pursue. The more you love yourself, the better friendships you have, the better relationships you have. And that's going to be what we're going to talk about as we move through February and we start looking at relationships, because we've got Valentine's Day in the middle of it. So we might as well take advantage of looking at love, direction, and ultimately the power of healthy self-love and the vitality, the need for healthy self-love in creating good, strong, solid partnerships. So self-love is the first love energy that influences the direction that you take your life. The second gate we want to look at is the gate 7. The gate 7 says, I'm powerful. I have a voice. I have the right to have a voice in the direction in which I take my life. I have a voice in the leadership of my life. I get to combine my voice with other people's voices and allow myself to create structures and leadership and even systems that facilitate and serve my empowerment. Because the story of who I am is so precious that it's worthy of having a voice and control over which direction I want to take my life, both personally and collectively. The gate 1, which is, right now, I go through cycles. Right now, this is probably my favorite gate at the moment. The gate 1 is the gate of self-expression, okay? This gate says, my job in the world, my destiny, is to be the fullest expression of the story of who I am. This isn't about arts and crafts. I think sometimes this channel gets interpreted as being creative, and we start thinking about this in the context of art, craft, poetry. And sometimes people who have this energy for sure have a desire towards that, but it's not just that, okay? This says that your purpose in life, this is, by the way, the most yang energy in the chart. This is a yang-yang hexagram, so this is like all momentum here. And it's so interesting, isn't it? We have all momentum. We've got this super momentous gate 1 coming off of the G center, which is not a motor, which means that you gain momentum in your life when you be yourself. The more aligned you are with who you are, the more aligned you are with expressing yourself authentically, the more momentum you have in your life. Meaning you get gummed up and stuck when you're trying to be something you're not, or when you're shutting down the true story of who you are and disguising it or hiding it. The gate 13 says, I have the capacity every day, every minute, if you choose, to tell my own story about who I am. And that story that I tell is the story that sets the tone for my direction in life. I also like to call this gate forgiveness, because what we see here is that in order for us to craft a story that tells the truth about who we are, we have to tell a story that doesn't keep us quagmired or stuck in the past, doesn't keep us locked into places where we perceive ourselves as having been victimized by the past, because that's not a self-loving perspective. That if you really love yourself, one of the things that you'll do is you'll forgive, and that's not denying, okay? That's not gaslighting. That's not, I'm really not a big fan of you forgiving when you're not ready. You have to be ready. Okay, you have to go through the process oftentimes of grief and all that stuff that's part of the, the human story in order to get to that place where you can craft a different narrative. But you do have to do it. It doesn't serve us to drag our past stories into the future for an unlimited amount of time. Because when you do, then it limits your personal narrative. And that personal narrative becomes quagmired in events that are no longer happening. And it's a very loving thing for you to do for yourself, first and foremost, in order for you to craft a different narrative. The gate 25 says, I am so precious and my role on the planet is so vital, unique, and irreplaceable that spirit, I have a deep, abiding relationship with spirit. I have a deep spiritual connection, and part of the direction that my life takes me in is dependent on that relationship with spirit, and I trust source. I trust that there is an unseen legion of love and beings who are supporting me in the fulfillment of the full expression of the story that I'm living in. The gate 46 is the energy for vitality or embodiment. We oftentimes talk about this gate as being the gate of the love of the body, and it has a certain sensual energy with it. It can be sensuality. It is the place where we manifest life force energy. It's tricky to say body love because body love is a really triggering, intense, collectively, I think, still unhealthy concept. So I don't like to use body love here. I really like to use embodiment as the word here because I think that's a little bit more easy for us to understand and to work with. Basically, it says this: your body, your physical body, is the house for your soul. It's the temple for the story that you're living in. And because it is this house that holds this infinite story, there's an aspect of your soul here as well as your life story, because there's this infinite, beautiful light being living in this temple, that this temple is worthy of being nurtured and taken care of. And also the direction that your life is going to take you is going to be dependent on the quality of vitality that you're able to embody, in other words. And I actually posted on my Instagram and on Facebook and in my YouTube channel this morning a little snippet on the need for rest and projectors. It's actually a good video for all of you to watch. It's short. I think it's only like 4 or 5 minutes. Because one of the things that we see is that the direction that our life is taking us kind of quagmires. It gets stuck or it stops, no matter what your type, when your vitality is low. Because the universe knows if you're exhausted and depleted and your body's not fully holding that life spark, that you don't have the energy for any other opportunities. And so for you to live in the love of this gate, you have to love your body. I mean, you got to rest it, take care of it, feed it well, give it nice hot baths with bath salts, or, you know, you've got to give it sleep, or for some of us, you got to give it some exercise, or you've got to watch the language that you use or associated with it. But this physical body needs, just like our house, you know, your house needs maintenance. It needs maintenance sometimes, and that love piece is part of the maintenance there. The gate 2, which is actually the most yin of the hexagrams, it's the most receptive. It says, I love myself enough, and I love the story that I am so much that I'm willing to allow myself to be fully supported in the full expression of who I am. And what we see is a really interesting relationship between the 2 and the 1 that says when you are being fully authentic, then you open up the channels of support, because the universe wants to support you in being the full expression of who you are. And the more aligned you are with that support, the more you know that that support is worthy of expressing into the world, that that's your real job in the world, is to be yourself. The more you can be aligned with who you are, the more the support kicks in, because that's when everything gets aligned and correct. Last but not least, the gate 15 says that you are by nature a compassionate being. You are designed to, when you have enough, that's the kicker, okay? When you have enough, to share the extra that you have and to share who you are with the world. In fact, we know that sharing, giving, the act of giving, when you give something to someone or when you are generous with someone, it actually increases the quality of your heart coherence. Your heart gets healthier with acts of compassion and generosity. And that increases the quality of well-being that you're experiencing, and ultimately, of course, the direction that your life is going to take you. I want to go through a little bit of the shadow sides of these gates, just to kind of, we're going to quickly pop through these, just because I want you to see what does it look like when you're not living the high expression of these energies. So the gate 10 is oftentimes experienced in the shadow side as disempowerment or blame. Sometimes you'll feel like you are a victim of your life or a victim of other people when you are living the low energy of the gate 10. You feel disempowered. You don't have self-love. You have anti-self-love. And then it becomes everybody else's fault for not loving you. The gate 7 is the gate of democratic leadership, is what we call it. When it's not functioning at its highest level, you have a tendency to feel disempowered or like your voice doesn't matter. I just am getting ready to finish the editing on a podcast interview that I did with Dr. Valerie Rain, who wrote a book called The Patriarchy Stress Disorder. Amazing book, go get it. And she talked about the ancestral lineage of having your voice repressed. And this is in particular, she was talking about women in particular. And the impact of having your voice repressed ancestrally and of course in your current life, how that affects your self-love and ultimately your stress and your trauma and the story you tell about yourself and of course the direction that your life takes you. We have to be powerful. We are designed to be powerful. Power and being empowered is so important that we go through two distinctly different developmental phases as children to learn about power, both when we're toddlers, 2-year-olds who say no, right? And as teenagers. These are both vital developmental stages that help us learn about our personal power. The gate 1, when we're not making our creative contribution, we're not fully expressing who we are, we're hiding who we are, what happens a lot of times is we tend to go underground. But it manifests as an anxiety that sounds something like this, and you may have said these words to yourself inside your head. I know I'm here for something and I don't know what it is. There can be a real disconnect when this energy is not operating at its highest level between who you are and your purpose and your mission. And you might feel very much like your life is purposeless or meaningless, and that can cause you to feel adrift in your life and in your relationships. The gate 13 gives us the energy for looking back and listening and from processing and experiencing and reviewing our narrative to craft a narrative that incorporates everything that's happened to us up until this point and also allows us to expand into the future. If you are not doing your forgiveness work and you're holding on to the old stories of the past because you're afraid that maybe the past might repeat itself again, you're going to let yourself get stuck here and not tell a story that's going to empower you. In the low expression of the 25, we feel spiritually disconnected. We don't trust source. And here's what happens if you don't trust source. If you don't have a deep love of spirit, if you're not practicing with a spiritual practice and practicing having a practice so that this muscle gets well developed, it's very difficult for you to build beyond your personal will if you don't trust source, which means your box out of which you choose your creative options in life is going to be pretty small. You can't grow big without being able to take leaps of faith. And you can't take a leap of faith if you don't have a relationship with spirit. So it will limit the direction that you take your life. I think embodiment's probably pretty obvious. We know, probably all know to a certain degree, what does it mean to not love our bodies, to not take care of our bodies. Unfortunately, many of us know that one pretty intimately. This one too. When we don't love who we are, we don't love the story that we're living. And I'm saying that this way very specifically because I think if I say to you, it's not who you are, it's the story you're living. You are a soul. You are a holy soul that is living in a human story. And that story, I think, this Karen world, you don't have to take the same belief system, but I believe you have a certain obligation as a human being, as a light being, a soul being in a human story, to really live that story because you're here to serve that story. That story is your right place in the cosmic plan. It's part of the cosmic tapestry or the tapestry of the evolution of humanity, and you have an obligation to really live this story. You're not going to be in the story forever. It feels like it sometimes, but you're not, And so but your soul is going to be here forever. Maybe not in this story. It's just you're on vacation right now, right? You're in this great holodeck, living the story, serve the story. And part of serving that story is loving it enough to go, wow, this story deserves to be supported. It's pretty cool. Think of all the things it's doing and all the things that's happened and all the things it's going to grow into. I should make sure that I'm allowing myself to be supported in the way that's really worthy of who I am. And last but not least, for you to explore and make sure that you're not shutting down the sharing aspect of who you are because you're locked into a belief system that says there's not enough, or that, and I don't think anybody on this call has this, but it's always good to check in, to explore, do you have any divisive beliefs that cause you to think that you're separate from other people, or that you know, that there are binary points of view in how you see yourself in the world. What we know from physics is that we're all the same stuff. We're all individuated aspects of the divine. We're all expressing it differently, but basically we're all the same stuff. So you can't not share with someone else because they're different from you because they're you. That's a hard one to think about today when you open up CNN, right? Okay. So affirmations, just to explore for a minute when we talk about your identity center, your G center for the defined G. I am who I am. I express myself in all that I do. And I celebrate the magnificence of who I am. For your open identity center, how I experience myself changes depending on who I'm with. I choose to surround myself with people who feel good to me. Place is very important to me, which is true. If you have an open G center, you got to be in the right geographical location that feels good to you, because otherwise opportunities don't happen. So that's part of direction for you. Part of your direction is going to be derived from being in the right geographical location. Place is very important to me, and I create an environment that soothes me. When I'm in the right place, right opportunities come to me. Oops. When we look at redefining elements of the human design chart and use quantum language, if we look at the G center and the quantum purpose of the G center, the purpose of the G center in quantum human design is to give direction to love, sustainability, leadership, release, that means letting go of the past, empowerment, spirit, embodiment, natural order, compassion, and peace. It holds the magnetic resonance field of the magnetic monopole. So in human design, we know that there is a magnetic force that resides within the G center that only attracts. The law of attraction is rooted in the G center. And we can influence what we attract based on our alignment with these energies or these different expressions of love. The quantum name for this center is the calibration center. Now, I call this the calibration center because it's a center that can be calibrated, and the way in which we calibrate it, this is the easy part, is through our thought forms. Our thoughts, when we have thoughts, we have meanings associated with those thoughts. Those thoughts create neurotransmitters. Neurotransmitters are biochemicals that stimulate emotional energy. So when we have a thought, our brains create neurotransmitters. Those neurotransmitters in response create a specific emotional energy, and that emotional energy in turn calibrates the heart and the quality of love you experience. That calibration influences what you attract into your life. So, keeping it super simple, if you love yourself, you're going to attract into your reality relationships that reflect the self-love that you have for yourself. You're going to have partnerships and friendships that are mirrors to your self-love, and they're going to be juicier, more fulfilling, more authentic relationships. If you are aligned with your personal empowerment, if you feel powerful, you will attract into your experience opportunities to express and share that empowerment. Okay, so the more you bring yourself up into the highest expression of these energies of the G center, the more what you attract into your life matches that quality of energy that you hold. If you were going to break it down in a channel like this, okay, this is the mechanics of manifesting, right? Your thoughts trigger an emotional energy, which in turn calibrates the heart, which in turn influences what you attract into your life. And then according to your human design type and strategy, you then interface with whatever shows up correctly according to your type. You are going to experience love only to the degree to which you live in the full expression of love. Now, here's where it's going to get interesting. And this is the point where I told you at the very beginning, I'm going to start pointing you towards some resources because I can't teach self-love in 60 minutes or 30 or however long we have left. So let's start first with ways to heal self-love. The biggest, easiest thing that you can do to start helping yourself heal your self-love is start telling better stories. So one of the things that I want you to do right now, and I'm actually going to give you a minute to do this. If I took all the voices of the gates in the G center and I kind of laid them out. First of all, I just want you to know that these phrases, I love, I choose, I decide, I am, I forgive, these are actually high frequency languages. These are high frequency words. Okay, these words have been shown to actually bring your heart into a state of what's called coherence, meaning these are energies that literally will open your heart and allow your heart to synchronize itself with your mind and the rest of your body. These are great. I would encourage you to print or write these words out, keep them on a little piece of paper in your pocket, put them on your bathroom mirror. If you ever get into a state in your life where you are struggling, maybe you're having a bad day, that's going to happen no matter how much you love yourself. You're going to have bad days, okay? And you're struggling with stinking thinking, or maybe something's not going the way you thought, or maybe you're having a challenge, something unexpected has happened, or you're learning something new and you're challenged. If you use these words will actually bring you back into your heart. And your heart, actually, research shows, your heart actually has kind of a mini brain in it. It's got its own neural network. And it has, because of this neural network, its own intelligence. And it has the ability to actually bypass the thinking in your brain, which is going to be deeply conditioned, and actually has the ability to lock into the truth of the heart of who you are. Okay, so just repeat after me. I can't hear you. No one can see you. So just do this in the privacy of your home, unless you're in your office cubicle hiding out. Here are the words we're going to use. I love. I choose. I decide. I am. I forgive. I serve. I am vital. I am supported. I am compassionate. These are words that embody the energy of the heart of who you are. One of the things that I want you to start doing is start practicing telling stories, writing better stories. And I mean literally stories, like creative expressions of how you want your life to look using these beginning sentences. These are sentences in and of themselves, but if you want to, you can embellish them. You can use them as writing prompts for writing better stories. Here's why storytelling is so fantastic, okay, and so important. I'll try to break this down without slides because I didn't put the slides in here. When we look at life forms that have mirror sides to each other, like all human beings are, for the most part, have mirror, we're bilaterally symmetrical, right? If I put a line down the middle of my body, one side is going to be a mirror to the other, except for in some places, but we don't have to go into that, right? So we are bilaterally symmetrical. What we know, physical therapists have found out, and I think this is super cool because now this is beginning to translate to neurology. What physical therapists found out recently is that if you have an injury on one side of your body, so let's say you have an injured shoulder, and instead of focusing on the injured shoulder, you shift your focus over to the shoulder that is healthy and well and has full range of motion, and you really notice the vitality and the wellness in this healthy shoulder, that if you do that first before you start working on the injury in the other shoulder, that you will improve the well-being and the health in the injured shoulder faster. We can heal the mirror image of the body by focusing on the side of the body that is functioning well. The brain is bilaterally symmetrical. It has a left hemisphere and a right hemisphere. The left hemisphere of the brain, because it's associated with logic and linear thinking, and in human design with the spleen center, because the circuitry for the left brain runs through the spleen. We know that the left side of the body is all about doubt and fear. And to a certain degree, it's a doubt and a fear that causes us to question our lovability and our value, right? Especially through our vitality and through our compassion, through our storytelling and through our empowerment, all right? So this energy of this fear and doubt on the left side of the body has the ability when we get stuck in the fear and doubt to really act like an injury, right? It keeps us from fulfilling our potential. If in turn we use the right side of the brain to focus on healing the left side of the brain by looking at what's going right, what's going correctly on the right side of the brain, and we start focusing on putting our energy on this right side of the brain, instead of trying to get in here and intellectualize releasing fear and doubt, how hard is it to get rid of fear and doubt? It's kind of hard, right? Some of us have gone to therapies for decades trying to undo fear and doubt. Part of it is that it's biologically, evolutionarily advantageous for us to stay in fear and doubt, because that allows us to prepare for the next potential worst case scenario. So it keeps us alive, and that's fine. But there's not a whole lot of you can do a lot of cognitive therapy, and this is not in any way just on cognitive therapy. I'm just saying that sometimes focusing on trying to analyze why we're stuck in fear and doubt, especially if we're doing it without the benefit of understanding human design, it's not going to help us to try to figure it out. And sometimes instead of figuring it out, we can move over here to the right side of the brain. And instead of figuring out, we can write a story, literally write a story, like a cartoon or a short story or any kind of other creative offering. If you really feel like, oh God, I can't write stories, don't write a story. Create an art project that embodies the essence of the story. We can use storytelling to start writing a story that negates those places where we hold fear and doubt in the left side of the brain. So let's look at this. Let's give you a perfect example. Let's say you really felt powerless in your life. And let me just say that if that powerlessness is so debilitating and it feels like trauma and you're stuck in that trauma, use this story writing process. But if you need more than that, if you need to get help and support for that, please do. Because you deserve to not be stuck in the trauma of disempowerment. You are worth a lot more than you having your power repressed or living from a place of repressed power. So back to the storytelling piece. Use this right brain storytelling part of your brain to write a new story about being powerful. So you might write a story about, let's say, I'll use my name just because I'm telling the story right now. Karen the brave, Karen the powerful. And let's say in this story, one of the things that I'm really struggling with is speaking my truth to my family. Okay, that's a common thing I hear people talk about a lot. I certainly struggle with that sometimes. I have, in my family, I'm the screw up, which I think is kind of humorous at this point in my life. But for many, many years, that was a very, very painful thing. So let's say I'm going to confront my family and I'm going to activate my power. So I'm going to write a story about Karen the brave and powerful and the day she told her family the truth, right? And so I might write this entire story about how I called my family to the table and I had them all sit down and I put on my super Karen power suit and I sat at the end of the table and I commanded their attention, and I, with great self-love and power, shared with them the true story of who I really am, the me that they never could see, the me who they doubted, the me who they tried to hold back, maybe because they were trying to keep me safe from disappointment, right? And I tell this story, and this whole family, all these people sitting at the table, then, put their hands over their heart and acknowledge the power of who I am. Now that's kind of a really lame story. It probably, if I was sitting in my office at 5:30 in the morning in my most creative time frame, that's where my best creativity happens, I might write a much more creative story. But to write that story, to actually go through the process of writing it out and putting in the details and putting in the emotional piece, it causes you to focus on the expansive, juicy nature of the right side of the brain and to heal that left part of the brain that's saying, I don't know if I can be loved. I don't know if I can be powerful. I don't know. It gets you out of that fear and doubt, allows you to put your focus on the right side of the brain, stimulates a whole different quality of emotional energy. It actually decreases your cortisol levels, making you even more creative by raising your dopamine and serotonin levels. And it begins to change the entire experience of self-love that you carry in your heart, and consequently changes your point of attraction. So you can use storytelling to start to tell a different set of stories. That is why every year I write the Human Design Evolution Guide, because every 6 days the sun and the earth move through 64 hexagrams, the 64 archetypes in the chart that are facets of who you are. We all have all of these elements in our life as part of who we are. And going through the calendar year with the movement of the sun and the earth, the transits of the sun and the earth, allows us to, in a very systematic way, review the stories we're telling about who we think we are, our lovability, and our value. So the 2020 Evolution Guide is available on Amazon. Snag it, because it's going to give you a really systematic approach to how can you check in. You can go through this Rolodex of archetypes and check in and see, how am I doing in this human story? Which facets am I living? Which stories am I telling about who I am that maybe I need to change or improve? Other ways to heal self-love. Trauma. I actually did a quantum alignment show on trauma a while ago, I think in December. But trauma, any kind of trauma, and by the way, my definition of trauma is different than the standard definition of trauma. In the definition that I have of trauma, a trauma is any event, perception, or experience that causes you to lose connection with your right place in the world and your sense of value and your lovability. Any event that takes you away, that disconnects you from your unique, vital, and irreplaceable role in the cosmic plan, or causes you to question your love, ability, and your value. If that's the definition we use of trauma, then I would say probably all of us are traumatized on some level. And honestly, when I look at the statistics in my own personal practice, I would say we all are traumatized to a certain degree, some of us more than others. If we are going to create a world of equitable, sustainable peace, if we're going to create abundant resources for ourselves, if we're going to create great relationships for ourselves, if we're going to create higher qualities and states of health and wellness, we have to clear trauma. Trauma is clearing trauma changes your emotional and mental conditioning. And part of the reason why I created the quantum alignment system was because when I looked at human design and I looked at people and looked at charts and did coaching, and I did that for 18 years before I figured out how to put all this together. What I saw over and over again is that the deconditioning process doesn't happen naturally. You can't just live your strategy for 7 years and poof, all of a sudden you've cleared your trauma. That there is a certain degree of needing to get in here and clean up the conditioning field, especially because a lot of what we bring forth into our world in the personality crystal isn't even our own trauma, it's ancestral trauma that's stored in the DNA of who we are. The quantum alignment system is an integrative approach to clearing trauma. I'm putting this here not because I'm trying to sell it, I'm putting it here because I have found in my research that this is a really effective way to clear trauma. It incorporates human design, the emotional freedom techniques, which we now know from research has the ability to change the regulation of your DNA and increase your quality of well-being and clear conditioning on an epigenetic level. It uses a technique called quantum questioning. It uses subtle body therapies, meaning it works on the energy field and on the auric level to stabilize things as you continue to make changes, and coaching to give you a very solid way to move through trauma. And if you go to my webpage, quantumalignmentsystem.com, and you look for quantum alignment system practitioners, I have trained some amazingly talented people who have a really great, deep, brilliant skill set that allow them to help you clear trauma so that you're not reacting out of a place of self-protection based on things that have happened to you in the past and that keep you from allowing yourself to move forward into a bigger, broader, more expansive love for yourself. And let yourself be more open to receive what you really deserve to receive. Now, in conjunction with the quantum alignment system, about every 2 to 3 months, we offer a series of programs called the Master Alignment Programs. These are 10 sessions where we actually use the quantum alignment system in a group setting. These calls, these Master Alignment Program calls, usually focus on a specific topic. We have one starting in the beginning of February that's going to be about looking at trauma and money, abundance, and clearing old energies around, old conditioning around abundance and self-love, which usually is a huge reason why we don't allow ourselves to be abundant. We use the quantum alignment system, including the tapping and human design and the subtle body therapies and the quantum questioning. We use this process to help you get realigned with the true story, the lovability, the worthiness of who you are. These programs are open to everyone, meaning I have a set fee, but I also have the opportunity, if you are, for whatever reason, not able to afford the program, there is a way for everyone to take this program. This is a place where my instructors, my students, and myself, this is our place of service, and it's very, very important to all of us as part of our commitment to supporting the world and clearing trauma that we offer this to everyone. So no one will be excluded from this program if you want to be a part of it. So I don't have a lot of information on it today because I don't want to focus on this, but tomorrow you're going to get an email that's going to tell you how to enroll in that if you want to. So my slides are so out of order today. I don't know if my order is unordered. All right, so I want you to go back to the gate 10. I'm going to flip forward and we'll start here. Gate 10, okay? The gate 10 is called the gate of self-love. We are going to go through a process called quantum questioning, which is the last thing, this is part of the quantum alignment system. This is the last thing I'm going to leave you with today because I want to leave you with this as homework. In the gate 10, if we look at the gate 10, and this is true for you whether you have this defined or not. So all of you find the gate 10 on your chart. I think I didn't even put the image of it on there. Okay, so I'm going to walk you through where it is. If you go, sorry. There it is. The gate 10 on the chart is right here. It's on the left-hand point of the G center. Some of you are going to have it colored in. Some of you are going to have it open. It doesn't matter if you have it colored in and open, you still have it. You all have all of the chart. If you have it defined, it means it's a consistent and fixed theme in your life that you've been exploring all of your life. If you have this gate open, it means you've been experiencing this energy in a variety of different ways from the world around you. And because you've been experiencing this energy in a variety of ways from the world around you, it means you have a lot of deep understanding of the potential ways that this particular energy can get expressed in the world. In the masterful expression of the gate 10, sorry, forgive me again here, you guys. Oh my gosh. In the masterful expression of the gate 10, you see your love for yourself as the source of your true creative power. What you've seen over the course of this class is that when you love yourself, you begin to take your life in a direction that is a reflection of that quality of love that you have for yourself. And when you love yourself, you unlock a phenomenal quantity of creative power because you leave yourself open to creating and experiencing so much more than what you do when you've locked that self-love down. The unbalanced expression of the gate 10 is to question your lovability, to struggle to prove your love worthiness, to give up and settle for less than what you deserve, and to blame others for your circumstances and situations. Sometimes we manifest this as victim consciousness. So we feel like everything happens to us because we've lost such touch with our creative capacity that we think life is happening to us instead of we are influencing the direction that life is taking us. The lesson, the challenge that the Gate 10 brings us is the challenge to learn to love yourself and to learn to take responsibility for your own creations, which means your role with this gate is to learn to love yourself, because when you learn to love yourself, you regain control over your power and you understand that you have the capacity to influence what you experience in your life. Here's an affirmation for the Gate 10. I am an individuated aspect of the divine. I am born of love. My nature is to love and to be loved. I am in the full flow of giving and receiving love. I know that the quality of love that I have for myself sets the direction for what I attract into my life. I am constantly increasing the quality of love I experience and share with the world. In the quantum alignment system, we use a technique called quantum questioning. It's a way of praying that is a prayer that is rooted or stated in question format. That prayer, or this quantum question, actually seeds the quantum field. It seeds the quantum field and it invites the quantum field to then manifest either through our thoughts, our memories, our experiences, our dreams, or something that happens in our outer reality. It invites that quantum field to bring to us the answer to this question. Here's the beauty of working with this energy. And again, when you study the quantum alignment system, you'll learn why we pray as questions in a questioning format. In fact, Cindy, didn't I do a quantum alignment show on the mechanics of prayer at one point? Maybe.
Yes, we did. I am keeping a list of all the quantum alignment shows, and I will find them and post them.
Okay, so Cindy will post that one. If you want to know why is she telling us to pray with questions, I will explain the mechanics of that. That was a whole nother quantum alignment show. Cindy's going to go find it for us. Thank you, Cindy. So we use the power of questioning as a way of attracting into ourselves the answer to our question that supports us in the journey of healing our self-love. So I'm going to give you this question as the way that I end up today. I want you to take this question, write it down, put it on a little 3x5 card. You can read it before you go to sleep at night, or you can read it in the shower, take it in a walking meditation, or contemplate this question while you're meditating. You can journal about it. But here's the thing I really want you to get. You don't have to figure out the answer to this. That's not how this program works, okay? You just ask the question. You don't have to answer it. The universe is going to answer this for you, or the cosmos or the quantum field is going to bring this answer to you. And it'll bring it to you as an epiphany. It'll bring it to you as an insight. It might come to you while you're journaling. You might have a dream. You might have somebody say something to you that suddenly triggers a whole different level of understanding. It's pretty magical how this works. So I really want to encourage you to, at the very least, experiment with this process, because I have found over the years that this is a phenomenally juicy and easy way to gain deep insights into what might be holding you back from self-love. So here's your quantum question. Again, don't figure this out. Don't sit here and squish your brain trying to figure this out. Just write it down and be with the question. What needs to be healed, released, aligned, and brought to your awareness for you to deeply and completely love and accept yourself? What needs to be healed, released, aligned, and brought to your awareness for you to deeply and completely love and accept yourself? You will change your point of attraction when you change the quality of love that you have for yourself. Next week, we're going to continue with this conversation, but we're going to get much more specific and much less nebulous. And we're going to start talking about the dynamics of relationships and how you can begin the process of transforming your relationship into a bigger, juicier arena of love and acceptance, and passion, communication, and all those other things we want our relationships to be. Thank you all for joining me today. Thank you, Cindy, as always, for making sure everything works, posting all the links, doing all the amazing things that you do. We're a little over, but we should take maybe one or two quick questions if we have any. Yes? Maybe we don't.
You had answered it going through, because the only question I saw was on Facebook.
Okay.
And it was she wrote this before you said it. What does it mean if it's a defined center versus an open center? So I think that was
that one.
But I do want you to hear, there's a couple on Facebook, and Santalina said at the beginning of your show, I've definitely been hanging with you, beloved one, Karen. Thank you for offering your very best always to us all. You are a vital gift to the universe and are serving to expand us. Thank you for being you.
Thank you. Thank all of you for being you. Thank you for that. That's sweet. I've had a bad troll week on Facebook, so I appreciate it. Thank you. So Mary Kay says she is, lost that. She is confused about the right side of the brain.
Body.
The right side, yes.
The right side of the body and the left side of the brain.
The right side of the body rules the left side of the brain, and the left side of the brain moves the right side of the body. They do crisscross, but the organ itself is bilaterally symmetrical. So we can use the right brain to heal the left side of the brain. And when I say heal, I'm just saying gets us unstuck out of doubt and suspicion. So if you have a completely open G center with no defined gates, it means that you're here to be completely wise about all of those energies and love. And it doesn't mean you won't have any struggles with self-love. It just means that it's probably a little easier for you once you get clarity to actually heal it or to realign it, because you don't have the same limiting factors that sometimes definition can give you. So good. All right, you all have a great week and a great weekend. Next week we'll start on the Transform Your Relationship series, and we'll look at how can you love your partner and yourself better in your relationships. You guys have a wonderful weekend. Be well. Take care. Bye.